Late last night, the Daily Wire broke what is certainly the wildest, most insane, and sickest story of the year. The reporter, the indomitable Luke Rosiak, excellent reporter for Daily Wire, he's the one who broke the story. So we've been hearing for weeks now about the supposed domestic terrorist movement in the United States. No, we're not talking about the KKK. No, we're not talking about Black Lives Matter rioters. We are talking, of course, about parents who are going to school board meetings and then saying things, which is super duper scary. And there are certain people who have been made the face of this supposed domestic terror movement. People who have been treated as though they are a deep, abiding, violent threat to teachers and school boards across the nation. Well, this is the story, according to Daily Wire, of one of those people. His name is Scott Smith. Here's Luke Rosiak writing. And this is a disturbing story, and you'll see why it's so disturbing. And what it really has to do with is the fact that the elitists in our society have cut themselves off from the rest of America and now are attempting to dictate policy to everyone else at the cost of human decency. On June 22nd, Scott Smith was arrested at a Loudoun County, Virginia school board meeting, a meeting that was ultimately deemed an unlawful assembly after many attendees vocally opposed a policy on transgender students. What people did not know is that weeks prior, on May 28th, says Smith, a boy allegedly wearing a skirt entered a girls' bathroom at nearby Stonebridge High School where he sexually assaulted Smith's 9th grade daughter. Juvenile records are sealed, but Smith's attorney, Elizabeth Lancaster, told the Daily Wire that a boy was charged with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, 1 count of forcible fellatio related to an incident that day at the school. As a result of the viral video showing his arrest, Smith became the poster child for what the National School Boards Association has since suggested could be a form of domestic terrorism, a white blue-collar male who showed up to harangue obscure public servants on his local school board. Lancaster, the lawyer, said if somebody would have sat and listened for 30 seconds to what Scott had to say, they would have been mortified and heartbroken. Minutes before Smith's arrest, the Loudoun County Public Schools superintendent lectured the public that concerns about the transgender policy were misplaced because the school system had no record of any assault occurring in any school bathroom. Then, a woman wearing a rainbow heart shirt, a left-wing community activist, told Smith she did not believe his daughter, he says. His rage reached a boil, and he had a heated exchange of words with the woman. A police officer there to keep the peace in the meeting pulled on his arm. Smith yanked it away. Before he knew it, Smith says, he was hit in the face, handcuffed, and dragged across the floor with his pants pulled down. Images of the incident were splashed on TVs and newspapers across the world. Bhutta Bibiraj, the county's progressive top-elected prosecutor, who has close ties to the school board's most liberal members, appeared in court to personally prosecute Smith for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Bibiraj ran on a platform of ending mass incarceration, but she wanted to put Smith in jail for the misdemeanors. As prosecutor, Bibiraj would have known about the case involving Smith's daughter. The suspect, juvenile court prosecutors assured Smith, was being held responsible. He was on house arrest, confined to his mother's townhouse. According to Lancaster, a conviction was expected on October 14th, likely in the form of a guilty plea to a lesser sexual assault charge. But on October 6th, according to the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, a 15-year-old was charged with sexual battery and abduction after police said he forced a girl into an empty classroom, held her against her will, and touched her inappropriately. Lancaster says the suspect is the same boy who allegedly attacked Smith's daughter. What follows, based on extensive exclusive reporting from Loudoun County, is Smith's experience. It is a story the school system and media were never going to tell. And so, the short story here, and we'll get to the details in a second, is that one of the parents who was protesting a school board and was speaking about the threat of transgender bathroom policy had a daughter who was allegedly raped in the bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt. And when he started to say what he thought, people started to get angry at him, and this resulted in him being branded a quote-unquote domestic terrorist by the media and the face of this very upset movement. Again, the father of the girl. Here's the story. On May 28th, Stonebridge High School called Smith to come to the school. They told him his 15-year-old daughter had just been physically assaulted in a bathroom by a male. When he arrived, he determined that what had happened was not a case of his daughter being beaten up, it was far more serious. The school said it was handling the incident in-house. Smith was dumbfounded. Deputies from the sheriff's office ultimately responded to the school, not to investigate the alleged rape of a child, Smith said, but because school administrators called them on him for making a scene about it. Smith acknowledges he did make a scene. He says any father would have done the same. He said, I went nuts. I called the principal a P word. 6 cop cars showed up like an effing SWAT team to respond to the school's complaints about an assertive parent, he said. Thank God I drew enough attention to it without getting arrested that we got an escort to the hospital and they administered a rape kit that night. A SANE exam and buccal swab, his lawyer said, came back later favorable to the prosecution's case. All juvie records are sealed. The sheriff's office declined to release records relating to Smith to the Daily Wire, but in response to a public records request, confirmed that a report with offense, forcible sodomy, and sexual battery matching that date and location exists. At 4:48 on the day of the incident, the principal sent out an email to the community that claimed nothing jeopardizing student safety had occurred, painting Smith as the villain and offering counseling services for witnesses of Smith's blowup. The letter said, quote, "Good evening, Stonebridge families. This is Stonebridge Principal Tim Flynn. There was an incident in the main office area today that required the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office to dispatch deputies to Stonebridge. The incident was confined to the main office and the entrance area to the school. There was no threat to the safety of the student body. The incident was witnessed by a small number of students who were meeting with the staff adjacent to the main office. Counseling services and the services of our unified mental health team are available for any student who may need to talk about today's incident." LCPS washed their hands of this, Smith said. It was only taken seriously because of the sheriff's office. The LCPS Director of Communications said only that, quote, "any information related to student information is confidential under state and federal laws regarding student privacy." Lancaster, this is the lawyer, told the Daily Wire she accompanied Smith's daughter to meetings with prosecutors, that the suspect made self-incriminating statements in an interview, that prosecutors brought the charges, and that a conviction was expected imminently, likely in the form of a plea deal to a charge of felony aggravated sexual battery. Smith had not opposed the downgrade, saying about the boy, "What if he made one mistake?" Okay, on June 22nd, the school board held a meeting where the focus of discussion was a proposal expanding special protections to transgender students. Smith showed up out of practical concerns. "My wife and I are gay and lesbian friendly," Smith said. "We're not into this children transgender stuff. The person that attacked our daughter is apparently bisexual and occasionally wears dresses because he likes them. So this kid is technically not what the school board was fighting about. The point is, kids are using it as an advantage to get into the bathrooms." From the dais, school board member Beth Bartz painted such concerns as paranoia and prejudice. "Our students do not need to be protected and they are not in danger," she said. "Do we have assaults in our bathrooms or locker rooms regularly?" Superintendent Scott Ziegler replied, quote, "To my knowledge, we don't have any record of assaults occurring in our restrooms." Board Chair Brenda Sheridan asked, "Have we had any issues involving transgender students in our bathrooms or locker rooms?" Ziegler answered, "Time magazine in 2016 called that a red herring, that the data was simply not playing out that transgender students were more likely to assault cisgender students in restrooms than were other students." Smith tried to contain himself as activists who prioritized lived experience and believe women ignored his daughter. Nearly 250 members of the public had signed up to speak. Many of them were critical of the school system's racial and transgender initiatives. Others were supporters of the transgender policy, who painted their neighbors as ignorant bigots, with one saying hate was dripping from the followers of Jesus in this room. Opponents booed at the remark. The board threatened to stop the meeting if participants were loud again. After another speaker blasted the school board for suspending a teacher named Tanner Cross for speaking in opposition to a transgender proposal, the crowd cheered, and the board shut the meeting down. 2 courts later ruled Cross had to be reinstated. Apparently, after a far-left board member Bartz was elected in 2019 with 55% of the vote, she lashed out at parents who disagreed with progressives and teachers' union-backed policies so often and with such vitriol that most of her peers, who agreed with her views, censured her and stripped her of her committee assignments. Bartz then retreated to a Facebook group officially known as the Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County, later known to critics as Chardonnay Antifa. And she started targeting people in the parent community who were questioning the Loudoun County School Board. Okay, but this apparently came to its sort of logical apex at this June 22nd meeting. Apparently, one of the parents confronted Smith, okay, because Smith was talking about what had happened to his daughter. A parent named Jackie Schwarm confronted him. Schwarm was at the June 22nd school board meeting wearing a shirt with a rainbow heart on it. As a Girl Scout troop leader, Jess had mentored Schwarm's daughter. Smith and Jess, just the wife, said Schwarm sought them out in the crowd, demanding to know which side they were on, then berated them they were in the wrong. "Jess, who is this?" Smith asked his wife. "I thought she was my friend," Jess said. Smith tried to tell her what had happened to his daughter, he said, and she looks me dead in the eyes and says, "That's not what happened." Schwarm then noticed that Smith was wearing a shirt with the name of his plumbing business on it. And she goes, "Oh, I'm going to ruin your business on social media." "You're a B-word," Smith told her, video shows. A police officer monitoring the tension-filled exchange pulled on Smith's arm. He yanked it away, and soon, Smith and the officer were wrestling. Jess cried out in words lost in the chaos, "My child was raped at school, and this is what happens." Smith was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Schwarm, this rival parent, actually did a 40-minute phone call with the Daily Wire and contended she had no relationship with the topic, that she didn't have any sort of argument with Smith and didn't know he had been arrested. After the Daily Wire offered evidence of her involvement, she said she went over to ask Jess for a play date between their teenage daughters. She claimed she asked Jess how she was doing, to which Jess purportedly responded, "We know critical race theory isn't real, but we don't want them to know it." Schwarm told the Daily Wire that if Smith's daughter told them she was raped by a Martian, she would believe her, but she also made repeated comments about the daughter's mental stability. As to her comments on the Facebook group, she told the Daily Wire the group was apolitical, that she had never taken part in list-making activities. And then she started calling other parents racists. After Schwarm repeatedly brought up that Smith was convicted of a crime, the Daily Wire asked if a restorative justice circle, a technique pushed by progressive prosecutors as an alternative to punishment, would have been a positive resolution to the arrest. Apparently, Schwarm then said she did not know what restorative justice was and wasn't interested. Okay, this entire thing ended up on national TV. And the entire story ended up being a story about how Smith was a terrible person who is trying to terrify members of the school board. And the prosecutor decided to go forward with the case and try to prosecute Smith and throw him in jail for all of this. Smith said nothing as his likeness traveled around the world, the avatar of ignorant bigotry. Advisors told him it would be better to let the process against his daughter's assailant play out. He didn't want to risk interfering. The culprit was expected to plead guilty on October 14th, but then there was a second case in which apparently the same teenager was charged with forcing a victim into an empty classroom where he held her against her will and inappropriately touched her. The Daily Wire is withholding the name of the suspect because of his age. Reached at home, his mother declined to comment on the allegations. So here is the bottom line. 2 girls allegedly sexually assaulted in school 4 months apart by the same person. So far, the only person to be convicted of a crime is the victim's father. A school policy passed following what appeared to be false statements from the superintendent. Right? The superintendent said that nothing bad had happened at school. That is not true. The prosecutor, Bib Baraj, has not returned a request for comment. Though the injection of politics into schools and criminal justice have led to pain where there was none before and enemies where there were once neighbors, it is possible some elected officials of Loudoun County might actually believe this story has a happy ending. Though Smith's daughter has been allegedly raped and separately beaten at school, the teen has adopted increasingly strong progressive views over the course of her tenure at LCPS. Where does she get these ideas? From school, obviously, said Jess. It's not from our home. Okay, that's the craziest story of the day. But unfortunately, this is part and parcel of the issues that we are told don't matter. We are told that parents are not supposed to worry about this, that educators are going to be handling the education of your children, that the school boards ought to be, this is what Terry McAuliffe says in Virginia. And that if you have any serious questions about this, if in fact your child has suffered at the hands of this ideology, then you're making it all up. It's all fake. That is what we are being told. How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic. I'd watch that. Make it happen, gang.